All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. NFL slowly winding down now in the playoff season. So that means NBA is in full force. 5 days a week you will get, 6 days actually, 5 days you'll get a live show Monday through Friday, and then a quick hit on Saturday. Slate planned all 7 days. You will get, I'll break down the schedule real quick. You got me and Matt on Mondays. I'm super pumped to do a show with Matt. It's our first one. Awesome, very knowledgeable, very good DFS player. You see him at the top of the leaderboards in many sports. So I'm excited to do this Monday show with him weekly. Tuesdays, you will get me and Rio. Wednesdays, you will get Matt and Rio. Thursdays, you will get me and Rio. Fridays, you will get Ham and Matt. Ham and Matt.
Yep.
And then Saturday, you will get a Ham quick hit. So there you go. 5 days a week, you get live shows. Saturdays, you get a quick hit. NBA slate plan, core plays, projections, ownership, everything as you can see above. Everything you need to be successful, and you do get to showdown slate plan Monday through Friday from our man Little Neck. Always does a phenomenal job. Also sometimes drops his own towers for main slate and stuff in there. Very knowledgeable mind. So love our NBA team over here. Love guys like Go Collect, Gang Green, our man Hebrew right here. Little Neck, who I'm talking about, Marquis, Jordan. I'm assuming he's watching. He drops in his new wins nuke. So a lot of awesome stuff going on. We'd love to have you at the Nation. You can get in as low as $19 for 5 days. You get the Discord, you get Ship It. You get SaberSim, you get all of our content at Ship It Nation using the code SHIP19. Matt, bring you in. That was a long-winded intro, but I'm excited to talk some sports with you. How you doing?
Yeah, man, doing well. Psyched to do this show with you. Our first one, as you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Talk some hoops. Just excited to break it down with you, man. We got a nice slate. Unfortunately, it's one of those slates where a lot of value is coming from one team.
Yeah, Denver. That's pretty much the story of the slate. I was going to say broad slate. You have all the value, which means you can spend up. But when you look at the spend ups, the highest player on the slate is only 10.5K. 3 guys above 10K. And then the rest below. So when you have all that value but only limited spends, it kind of leads a lot of people to similar builds. So I'm excited when we go through to see if we can get away from the chalk build. If you eat it and get different, it's still NBA. Chalk is good. It's chalk for a reason. And projections are most accurate in terms of NBA. Easiest to project, 24-second shot clock, this and that. But there's still 6-game slate, 8 games on FanDuel. I will mention 2 10 Eastern games, Portland, Utah, Clippers, and Golden State. Harden's questionable, so that is a big piece of news for the FanDuel slate. Otherwise, after that, it's a pretty light injury report, and I would not backload by any means for that Harden news on FanDuel. I think it just makes it pretty tough or tougher to play him if you have a lean, but he is a pretty strong play at only 9,300. We won't break down those last 2 games, but I know some people do play FanDuel. Interesting note there. But yeah, DraftKings, any broad slate overview or anything?
No, but you do. I like the point you brought up about Harden on FanDuel, like the game theory of him being a good play that will likely be underowned if he plays. And there isn't much to swap to if he's out, but that's why people won't play him. So I like the game theory aspect of that. As far as DK goes, it's kind of everything you said. It's the Denver value, and it's not even there are a few spend up options, even though they aren't expensive. But one of them, Jalen Johnson, is just going to be the guy everyone goes to for good reason, because he's too cheap and he's been too cheap. So I'm with you. I'm excited to talk this slate out in terms of how can we get a little bit different? Because NBA, you're definitely going to be playing popular players throughout your lineup. It's certainly for me more about lineup construction than players themselves. Because you don't want to be on an island in NBA, with 1 or 2 guys getting different. That's about all you need. So, we'll see where we can find a couple spots.
100%. And this is not updated. Let's see if SaberSim No, they don't. Ownership is not correct. Projections are not correct. Maybe that'll get updated for Denver throughout. But yeah, what it's going to be is a lot of the reason that like the Cade Cunningham, the SGA, why they're little lower owned than Jalen Johnson is because there's so much guard value for Denver. Strother, Pickett, Bruce Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Johnson's been so good, don't get me wrong, but that's why I do think Jaylen Brown even a little cheaper than
it's like a combination of the two. It's like all it's like the positions of the Denver guys, but also Jalen Johnson's like 50-60% on every slate he's on now.
Yeah, he is. I mean, it's crazy. And I like it because every time I see that name as a cash player mainly, it feels so safe. Like he can get there in so many ways. But man, I just remember last year, I mean, since he's gotten the league, he's done great. So his price kind of caught up too fast for people to be comfortable with it. And you used to get him super low owned on a lot of nights with this upside.
Especially when Trey was in.
Yep. Exactly. When Trey was in, people were the value point per dollar. He never rated out too great. I appreciate everyone in here. Too many to say hi individually, but appreciate that, Rio. I see you. And yeah, hopefully it'll be updated, either SaberSim or ours when we get to that last game. But we will go game by game. Like always, all we ask is the like button and subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. And again, if you want to join us at the Nation, the best deal, 5 days for $19. We'll be on this channel every single day talking some hoops. Very excited for that.
Damn, it's your birthday today too. I didn't even know it.
It is my birthday. Yep.
Damn, happy birthday, brother.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone out there wishing me one. If it's your birthday, I know there was someone on the Sunday show who mentioned it. If that's Sky's birthday or anyone out there, happy birthday to you. Otherwise, hope you're having a great day. All right, let's talk some Knicks, talk some Detroit Pistons. 1.5 point favorites are the New York Knicks. 231.5 total in this one, which is pretty solid. It's also worth noting there's a lot of big spreads on this slate. We got a 10.5, an 8.5, a 15.5, a 14.5. So we have two of them pretty close, or two of them close, 2.5, 1.5. And after that, it's pretty spread out. Now, I don't look at that too much in NBA, but it is worth noting if games get out of hand, you can lose a couple minutes, and that does go a long way. Injury report-wise for the Knicks, no Josh Hart still. For Detroit, no Jalen Duren, no Tobias Harris, Karis LeVert doubtful. Karis LeVert doubtful. Any interest on some of these Pistons? Definitely going to get some ownership / a lot of ownership on Paul Reed. He'll be one of the most popular. Then Cade Cunningham's the spend. But outside of that, like this, again, this isn't updated. Stewart, Jenkins, they won't be this high owned. A lot will go to the Denver stuff. So, yeah, take it away, Knicks Pistons.
Yeah, no, I'm like right there with you. The two guys in this game that are worth talking about are Paul Reed and then Cade Cunningham. So Reed looks like very Day'Ron Sharpish from the other night in terms of his price point just being way too low, starting at center. I don't like him as much as I did Sharp the other night, whatever, a couple nights ago, whenever that was. But at 3,800, he looks like one of, if not the top value play on the slate, even over the Denver guys. So he looks like certainly a cash game lock. I mean, he's a guy, like I mentioned the other day with Sharp, that he would be like, 80% in the 888 that night. He ended up being like 96%. Wow. I don't think Reed gets there, but I do think he gets to like 80%. So like, I think there's more merit to long-winded way of me saying, I think there's more merit to fade Reed tonight than there was Sharp the other night because of how much value is on this slate. That being said, he does look like the best or one of the best values on the slate. And there's less opportunity cost at center now with, Jokic not being there. So yeah, Reed looks amazing in all formats, everything except the ownership. And then Cade Cunningham, you mentioned a great point about why he's not like chalky because of the guard position, but it's still easy enough to get there on this slate with so much value that he's certainly in play. Not building around him, but if I end up landing on Cade, certainly not mad about it. Reed's the only priority for me, though.
For sure. Do you prefer Cade or SGA if choosing?
So, me personally, I like SGA more tonight because I think Cade is going to be higher owned, and I think Charlotte can be competitive in this spot. Kind of just a gut feel there more than anything else. I've liked what I've seen from them recently in spots. So I'm kind of banking on that as my GPP route to go tonight. So me personally, SGA.
I like it. I just want to sort by the center position to kind of show what you're saying. When you don't play Paul Reed, like Joel Embiid is the second highest point per dollar center on the slate. So it's almost what's telling me if I'm not playing Paul Reed, I'm probably playing Embiid, Vooch, or Cat, and just spending up and flipping the build. Because if you're looking at other value, like who's around 3.8K that has any bit of a same projection, we have 3.8K Paul Reed for 30. You got to go to Zeke Naji, 3.5K for 15 points, like half the amount of points. Otherwise, you're in this 5K range, which I don't hate, but I think I would rather just let me flip the build. Let me get Embiid, who's projected for 47, but he has 60 plus upside. And then you hope Paul Reed gets like a 24, and then the positions just flipped a little differently that way. So probably wouldn't play two centers if I'm fading Paul Reed, and I'm probably spending up. Again, this is more hand build stuff. Like I like what you mentioned. If you're in the 888 versus the flagship today, the $5 or whatever the big one is today, like you should be running different ownership, or at least manually changing stuff like in your head or something to look at on SaberSim, because people get way higher, like you said, 96. That's a different game you're playing. Kenny talks about it a lot.
Yeah, no, you make some really, really good points there. Like, I couldn't agree more with you about like the flipping the build scenario here, because if you're not playing Paul Reed, there's no one in his price range that's going to project as well. Could you get a score from someone that beats Paul Reed? Sure, because weird stuff happens, but there's nothing in projections that would make you want to do that. I'm okay with the 5K range also. Like Kada is fine, but at that point, I'd probably just rather spend down on Reed. So I love that point. Just couldn't emphasize that anymore. That all being said, I think you just play Reed and move on. Yeah,
I agree. I will have a ton of Paul Reed. Again, center's not great. Anyway, what about Clint Capella? I've seen a couple people mention Capella. He's 4K. He's the next cheapest. He has a 19 projection. Again, just game theory wise, if I knew nothing, and we talk about DFS, it's a fantasy game. It's a process. Like some of the best players don't know shit about their sport. You can add value to it, but just someone that would, like, if I didn't know anything, I'd see a 200 more, and I'm giving up 11 points in projection. So just that alone makes it tough for me. But ball more.
You can add value to it, but it could also be a detriment. Thinking you know too much always. You know what I mean? Because it just goes to everything you said. For me, Capella's a no. Like I'm not playing Capella over Paul Reed. I'll find ways to get different other than that. That is not a stand or a hill I'm going to die on.
I like it. And I wouldn't play them both together too, because again, we have so much Denver value. You're just giving up a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, to your point, like I'm playing 3 lineups tonight in like 5-5-5. Like if I'm playing that $5, like maxing the $5, I got no issue with being like over on Capella and under on Paul Reed. Just a different scenario. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. And when you play Capella, your lineup should look a lot different than when you play Paul Reed. You can play every single Denver value, play Cade, Jalen, whatever you want, because you already did something to get different.
And personally, like even still, if I were maxing the 150, that is still not a hill I would want to die on. Like I don't really want Capella over Paul Reed here. I think there are plenty other ways to get different.
100% agree. So nothing on the Knicks side. You said just Paul Reed and Cade in this game and move on.
Yeah, I think Brunson is like, I'm never going to say Brunson's not in play, but again, not a guy I'm building around.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. All right, let's keep it rolling. Next game on the slate, the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls. 10.5 point favorites are the Celtics, 236.5 total. No injuries to talk about on the Boston side. Chicago, no Josh Giddey, no Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith was playing pretty good basketball. Man, when he gets the minutes, he's a fantasy point per minute monster. Montes Bazulis absolutely owning Jalen Suggs. We got Vooch. What are your thoughts? I know a big spread in this one, but a decent amount of these have big spreads. Seen a couple guys showing over 5x value. Anything appealing for you in this one?
Yeah, so Kobe White is back for the Bulls, which kind of muddies things up a little bit. You mentioned Jalen Smith being out. I think just because of how this slate is playing out, there's more secondary plays than anything for me from this game. First off, I'll start with this expensive guy though, and Jaylen Brown. He's expensive. 9,800 is a hefty tag for Jaylen Brown, but I like the way he's playing right now, man. He's like come out and talked about how he's the best two-way player in the league, and like he just dropped 50 on Kawhi. This is a good matchup. Like he's a guy where I think you can spend up to be contrarian a little bit. It's not like he's going to be unowned, but he's not going to be nearly as owned as like Jalen Johnson, for instance. Not saying playing him over Jalen Johnson, but you could potentially play them together. Not a lot of people will do that. And I don't know. Like I'm willing to, on this slate, spend up to be contrarian. Not building around him, but I do like the idea of getting to him in tournaments. From the Chicago side, again, kind of muddied here. Buzelis, sure, 6K. I don't love it with Kobe White. Like Kobe White himself at 6K is also interesting. More secondary plays for me from Chicago, and probably for me personally, too difficult to identify which guy I really want to play in only 3 lineups. So I probably won't get to anything from Chicago. And from Boston, it's really only JB and Kada.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the least appealing games in my opinion. I do think ownership reflects that. Again, we need everything updated, but you might see just one guy above 15%. And I do think that is Jaylen Brown. You have the money to spend. You definitely do have the money to spend on 2 studs if you would like. He is the forward instead of guard, where there's a little less value. And he's been awesome. Like 38% usage rate, getting to the line a bunch. Yeah, like you said, he's feeling himself. I think he's on these live streams with some of these kids talking about it. Yeah, he's feeling himself without Tatum. So 9.8K, it feels expensive for him, but in this role, I think it's appropriately priced. Derek White's also another one that's expensive, but
forgot about him.
Yeah, he has those ceiling games. If you're going to play a lot of minutes, you can shoot a lot of threes, you can get hot. He's shown that he can have these 50-plus games, so I think he'll be relatively owned, his ownership will be in check. 8K is kind of expensive, but again, with guard position, with all the value we have, guard position keeps his ownership down a bit. All the value makes it easy to overspend or something on a guy like that. I do prefer the Celtics side more than probably Buzelis or nothing really. I don't like Vooch as much. I prefer Cat or Embiid or just go Paul Reed. I guess you have a take on Vooch trying to find other centers?
Yeah, Vooch is not a guy I play often just because of his price point and the opportunity cost at center. Tonight, it's probably going to be a similar story for me.
Yeah.
Like Jalen Smith being out, I guess helps him, but they were both starting together. I don't love the matchup. And honestly, like how I like to look at it, a lot of times, like when breaking it down, if I were playing one lineup tonight, just hand building one lineup, very likely I wouldn't get to anything from this game.
I like it. That's a great way to put it, and it helps a lot of people out there. If it was me, it'd probably just be Derek White or Jaylen Brown or nobody. But if I did land on one of those 2, I would be fine with that. All right, we'll keep it rolling. Next game on the slates, Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors. Move that over. We're looking at 2.5-point favorites are the Raptors, 234.5 total. Injuries on the Atlanta side, still no Trae Young. Going to the Toronto side, no Jakob Poeltl. Looking at some ownership. Well, again, it's not all updated. Let's sort by projection. You see the big 4. Wow. Quickly, Ingram, Scotty, RJ Barrett, all showing to have the best point per dollar value in this game. Definitely interested to hear your take on rules between these 4. All the prices look fine, but I always do. I hesitate a little bit clicking these guys, especially more than one, just because I think we need upside from these mid-tier, upper-tier guys on this slate, 5 or 6X, something like that. And they all eat into each other a little bit, but really curious to hear your take there. I think Jalen Johnson's strong, though. Then curious to hear your takes on some of these Nickeil Alexander-Walkers, Dyson Daniels, Okongwus, who look to be a little maybe overpriced, at least at projection, but I think have clear upside and definitely will be low owned.
Yeah. Honestly, I really want to fade this game in tournaments. Like, it's hard, though, because Jalen Johnson right now continues to project as one of the best value plays on every slate he's on at 10K, and he's like under projected everywhere and still projected for crazy amounts of ownership. And it's going to be the same thing tonight at 10K and the same matchup he was in couple nights ago. I hate these back-to-back spots where the team plays each other. As far as the Toronto side goes, like, I'm with you in that it's difficult to like pinpoint on any given night who it's going to be. In this type of matchup, I think any and all are in play. I don't have specific rules, personally, because I'm not playing 150. And with Barrett now back to playing 30 plus minutes, the waters are muddied. Now, in this spot, I think at their price points, you could play any of them, but I don't think any of them are must plays, if that makes sense. The only guy that I would say is a priority from this game is Jalen Johnson. I do think because of the ownership that he's going to garner and, the ownership that just this game is going to get, like, there are ways to get away from it in tournaments. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely can. The reason is, again, with Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, quickly, I was just trying to like game log watch and stuff, but like there's a lot of time that they're just in the, like they get 5x, they get right around there. It's nothing that it doesn't bury you, but it isn't getting you to the top. And at the end of the day, with how top heavy tournaments are nowadays, you want to get to the top. Fifth place isn't fun too many nights. So if I was hand building, I'm probably not going to manually click more than one of these guys. And if I click one, they just kind of are fitting in the last piece. And if that's the case, I'm more likely probably just click the cheapest one.
I get
so
that.
I don't love it, but I also play a different game than you. Like you're playing 3 teams. If I play tonight, I'm playing cash. If I do tournaments, I'll play the big boy, or the $5. That's the thing today, and then I'm building a whole portfolio. I'm looking at percentages. Sure. And if I think RJ Barrett's 18%, I have 45, I manually bump them down. If I have like 28 and I'm like kind of close on all those guys, then I don't touch it. Or if I hardly have any, I don't touch it either because I don't have a strong stance. I just make sure that I don't have a huge overweight stance. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, Rio, I think he's at the gym watching, but I think if I had to guess, his rule would be max 2 of the 4 on these guys, but I could be wrong. What's your thoughts on Colin Murray-Boyles? Again, we did mention he does have power forward eligibility, but trying to find like a cheap-ish center.
You want to know my real thoughts on Colin Murray-Boyles?
Yeah, I do.
I hate him right now because at 729, like whenever Slate they were on last, it came out that he was starting at center. I made a swap. It was like a small contest because I think football was on that day. It must have been Saturday. But I swapped out Luke Cornett and someone else for Murray-Boyles and PJ Hall. Cornett went for 50 that night, and Murray-Boyles was awful. Yeah, so certainly that he's not on my good side. But all kidding aside, I think he's like a fine filler piece starting again, presumably. I don't have like a strong take on him per se. Like, fine playing him at 4,200, but like the price is probably where it should be. So I think he's just a play. And as far as like, just adding on to your points about Toronto, the cheapest guy is Barrett because his price probably hasn't caught up to like the now back to normal-ish role. So I think he looks the best from a value perspective. My favorite would be Scotty Barnes at 8,300, but I'm with you. Like in any one lineup, it's difficult to pick out which guys you want from Toronto. And, if I were playing 150, I'm not sure I would set a rule of only 2. But if I were hand building, which, few lineups or whatever, there's no way I would get to over 2 in any lineup.
Agree with that for sure. I never make the rules in that aspect. And then if I am getting more than 2, I'm probably hoping I'm getting like at least 2 Hawks in it. And you just hope to like bank OT or something like that. We've seen, I don't play for it like that, but SaberSim's correlation, I assume bakes into that a little bit if it was clicking 3 Hawks. And again, you do have a lot of value.
I do think it's sorry to cut you off, but just on that point, like there is a lot of positive correlation that people like don't account for in NBA. I know there's that negative correlation because only one guy can get like a bucket, but there's so much positive correlation in terms of like how the game's going. Look at Boston versus the Clippers the other night. Like Jaylen Brown and Derek White both had like 60 fantasy points. The Clippers did nothing because Boston scored like 130. Like that's not going to happen every night, but there is a lot of positive correlation that I personally think is unaccounted for.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm in agreement. It's hard to, like, if you get it wrong, the floor could be low, but if it's a really fast tempo game when neither team's playing defense and every shot's falling, you can gain extra 10 possessions, whatever it may be, which adds a lot of that. And one guy makes a bucket, one guy gets an assist. Two guys can get the same point or points for the same outcome.
And it goes back to the point you just made a couple minutes ago. I wanted to get to all the way to the top of tournaments. And again, you don't want to be on an island in NBA, but I do think that there are, again, kind of like how I put it, and I liked how you broke it down. So, yeah, this game is going to get ownership. I don't think any one player from Toronto is like crazy popular, but I do think they all get a little bit of love, except Quickly just because he's a point guard. And then Jalen Johnson running it back on the other side. Pretty easy. I'm looking at ways to get away from it, but it does look really, really good from a projection standpoint.
Last one, Sandro. I mean, I guess my question is, what is his minutes projection in this one? We're seeing 23 here. Last game he played 31.
He was really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm like. If that 23 minutes is 28, sign me up for Mom. Like, I love playing Mamu. Point per minute monster can fill it up quick. But again, it's just center. If it center with Paul Reed and then the spend ups, you don't just want 5x. Like, I probably want him to get me like 35 almost. He's projected 5 less than Paul Reed at like 1,500 difference, to put it that way. But what minutes do you think, and what's your thoughts on him before we get to the next game?
Yeah, I have him projected for like 22 and a half minutes. So like right around there. And yeah, listen, if you were still power forward eligible, it'd be much more enticing. I don't really think you can do it at center, 150 entries aside. Like, if you're max entering the $5, certainly you can get to a little bit of him. But like, if you're hand building lineups, I don't think you can play him at 5,300 at center with, he played a ton last game because he was really, really good, but that's not guaranteed unless he's starting again. All of a sudden, if he moves back into the starting lineup, which we've seen a few times, then I think he becomes in play, at least. Not a must play, obviously, because you got Paul Reed, but I do think that at that point, a lot of lineups will be Sandro and Paul Reed.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. Good shout. Again, the thing is, last thing before we get to the next game, 5.2K is cheap, but with Paul Reed and then all the Denver stuff we have, it's like lower mid tier on this slate. So you really need him to do something.
He's like priced out of this slate because it's just how it's constructed.
Yep, 100%. Stars in quotes, because the highest you can go is only 10.5, but in scrubs is definitely the optimal approach tonight. All right, we'll keep it rolling. Appreciate all 275 hanging out. I love it. Monday NBA shows are back, like a couple of people are saying. Yeah, Monday through Friday we'll be here live. All we ask is if you could hit the like button and the subscribe button for us. It helps us out a ton. And if you do want to join us at the Nation, NBA projections, ownership, showdown, slate plan and tower from our man Little Neck 5 days a week. The Stone, of course, the best tool in the business. Slate plan from our man Rio, Monday through Friday, and then or GPP core report, cash report from myself. And Matt, you do a Wednesday slate plan? Rio, Monday, Tuesday. So there you go. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from Rio. We got Wednesday from Matt, and then Ham on Saturdays and Sundays. So we got you covered every single day. We'd love to have you. Get in the Discord if you do join, and you get SaberSim in the 5 days for $19 trial. Next game on the slate, another big favorite, OKC Thunder, Charlotte Hornets, 15.5-point favorites are the Thunder, 235.5 total. Injuries on the OKC side, no Alex Caruso, no Isaiah Hartenstein, no Jalen Williams with an I, the big Jalen. Charlotte side, no Kalkbrenner. That is all I'm seeing there. This game looks overpriced, but that's going to keep ownership low for sure. I guess you mentioned it a couple of games back. You think Charlotte can compete. And if they can compete, I think this is a spot where these guys are underprojected in minutes, and then that leads to underprojected in fantasy points if they do get a relatively competitive game for 4 quarters. So, yeah, you think that's the case, right? And then you have to have some interest.
Yeah, I am at least telling myself that story. I think you really said it best when you talked about how this game is just overpriced for how it's being projected. But if Charlotte can keep this game close, and again, it's OKC on the second half of a back-to-back, traveling back home, like this, then everyone here is underprojected. And, starting from the OKC side where you asked me originally, Shea or Cade, and I'm going to say Shea there because just of how I think this slate has potential to like be a really GPP type of slate. And, it's not often, like, again, I said earlier that you don't want to be on an island in NBA. And I guess this is kind of me being on an island because this game is going to be really low owned. But I think there's a ton of upside here if this game can stay competitive. And again, it goes back to it just being underprojected. So from the Charlotte side, little wary of LaMelo Ball because he was creeping towards 30 minutes. The past 2 games, only 26 minutes. That said, both those games were the first half and the second half of a back-to-back. So now you get him on a little bit of an island spot. Maybe he goes back to the 30th minutes. Brandon Miller, really like him here. He's my favorite piece of Charlotte at 7K. Going to be basically unowned. Went into halftime of his last game with like 10 fantasy points. Came out of the other side with like 45, 40, something like that. Big fan of his game. I think that if Charlotte is competitive here, it's on the back of Miller, LaMelo, Miles Bridges. Those guys are going to be all unowned. It's kind of like the mid-tier, expensivest build, and I like them here. I think you can play like a couple of those guys with Shea, with the good Jalen Williams, with Chet. I think there's routes for all those guys getting here. Certainly this game has blowout potential because it's OKC, and if it plays out how it's projected, you're not going to win tournaments. That's really all that matters here. But if it plays out any other way, I think you got a good chance to get to the top. So I'm certainly going to allocate 1-2 of my lineups to that story playing out.
I like it. Yeah, on a slate that looks very chalky with Denver value, Paul Reed, and condensed that way with Jalen Johnson and certain spends, this game's definitely a way you can get different. And if you do play this game, I would eat that other chalk because you're already doing something in your lineup to get different.
It also goes back to a point you made early on, like when I talked about Day'Ron Sharpe and the 96%, and you went back to it and you were like, you're playing a different game at that point. And you are. So even at the ownerships now, I think that, again, there are good plays tonight, but I think that it's not like the most stable chalk. There's a lot of flimsy chalk here. So I do think this is the slate for it. And in tournaments, like not in tournaments specifically, but in like the 5-5-5, like more expensive buy-ins and stuff, the chalk is just going to be even more condensed. So again, you're playing a little bit of a different game. And with flimsy-ish chalk, I'm willing to take some stands against it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Know what contest you're playing in. Know the people. I've been in the poker streets a lot. Half the game, I've learned it the hard way a little bit. Half the game is obviously playing poker the right way, but half of it's playing the person. If you know this person isn't going to fold to a bluff, then why are you burning off the money? If you know that people in this 555, if this Paul Reed's 95% and he's 60% in the other tournament, that's a whole different ball game you're playing. Because all those 95 Paul Reed teams, I mean, all right, they're spending up and playing stars and scrubs more. Maybe the Denver value is a little less, or Embiid has to be way less at center because there's only one center spot, and you can just leverage and build your tournament out that way.
Or what if all of a sudden Sandro's starting after lock?
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't even think that would change much in terms of ownership, like on Paul Reed.
No, I'm saying like all of a sudden, like, a lot of people wouldn't be able to get there because they already have Paul Reed locked.
Absolutely. Yeah, that way for sure. He has to be very low owned because you can only play 2 centers max. Great call there. So yeah, little things like that. My question for you would, like, if you're playing SGA or Jalen Williams or Chet, would you like force yourself to play a Brandon Miller or Bridges or someone on Charlotte, hoping it stays competitive, or are you just fine? Like, Charlotte can still play or be competitive. They have enough guys where they can still all just do fine, not be optimal. So I don't need to do that route. And I can play like an SGA by himself or Chet. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm not forcing like Charlotte back if I'm playing a guy from OKC. Shea maybe a little bit because he's so expensive. The other two are a little bit cheaper, so easier to play. So, like, I don't think you have to force them. It is difficult with OKC, though, because they blow out so many teams. So, like, naturally, it makes you want to play someone from Charlotte if you play someone from OKC. For me, I like the Charlotte side in tournaments, so it's not even a question for me. But, if you weren't taking that stand, no, I don't think you have to play someone from Charlotte if you're playing from someone from OKC. I also don't think you have to play anyone from OKC, presuming that you're going on the OKC just rolls here. In that case, I think you're looking at potentially like a Brandon Carlson at 4,100. who could see extra run if OKC rolls Charlotte. And at the end of the day, like, it's Charlotte. Like, it's not going to be a shocker to me if they get blown out here. I'm just kind of taking the other stand because we're playing an ownership game here.
For sure. Quick thoughts on FanDuel. A lot of this has been the same, DraftKings and FanDuel. Again, the last 2 games on FanDuel, 10 Eastern, are on the FanDuel slate, not on DraftKings slate. And Harden's questionable, which, again, if he's out, you don't really have many pivots. If we knew he was in, he would be pretty strong at point guard, shooting guard. So do with that what you will, which will lead to Kawhi getting more ownership. But Paul Reed's still the chalk center, going to be very highly owned. You can just play one center, and then the Denver value. And then from there, are you playing SGA? Are you playing Jalen Johnson, Jaylen Brown? Like, it's a very similar slate that way. For this game alone, I do think SGA may be a little higher owned on FanDuel with just being point guard eligible. There's only one, and Jalen Pickett, he'll be a popular point guard for the Nuggets, but I think those two will probably be the most popular because if we don't have Harden news, people will just naturally go SGA as a spend up there. So otherwise, it's pretty similar.
It's similar to me. The big difference for me is that Utah-Portland game, honestly, because I do think that even though prices are up, like, that's a really good game from a DFS perspective. So Denny looks really good on FanDuel. I mean, all the Portland guys look good, continue to look good. Portland's a team we want to target in DFS right now, both from their team and the team they're playing. And then Utah is the same way, like Keontae George. So I kind of take back what I said earlier about there not being pivots for Harden, because there are, because you got guys from that game, which I think might be the best overall game on the slate. Like, talking about it out loud here, if that game were on DraftKings, there would be big ownership on Denny and maybe just Denny, but the Utah guys would look good in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, Kawhi might.
Kawhi's been insane.
He seems to be underpriced. So yeah, FanDuel, that stuff. Like, the thing with Harden, you do have the pivot Keontae. You leave 400. You're giving up like 5 projection points. It's not your favorite route to do it, but the last 2 games on FanDuel are pretty important. But otherwise, similar slate. Denver value, Paul Reed. Pick your studs. That's what we got there. All right, we'll keep it rolling. Second last game of the slate, Phoenix Suns and the Houston Rockets. Let me refresh. 8.5 point favorites of the Rockets, 222.5 total, by far the lowest on the slates. Yeah, someone mentioned the highest is Utah, Portland, 242.5 on the FanDuel slate. The highest for the DraftKings slate is Chicago, Boston, 237.5. This is the lowest. Injuries for Houston, no Alperen Sengun, and then Steven Adams is questionable. That's a big piece of news right there. As far as the Phoenix side, no injuries to note. So, this is where if Steven Adams is out, people were talking Capella earlier.
I might have to
you got to wait.
Everything I said earlier.
You got to wait till 8 Eastern though. So I guess, are you willing to take that risk? Like, assuming we don't know it before Paul Reed locks. Obviously, then you could play Capella and Paul Reed stuff, but then you're locking up a util spot and you're sacrificing some of the Denver stuff. So even let's talk if he is out. If he's in, you're not playing Clint Capella. But even if he's out, like,
do we like him more than Paul Reed?
Yeah, and I don't think it's even. I don't think this projection is going to go anywhere close. There's still so many guys. I mean, the Rockets are great at rebounding guard, like Amen Thompson. So his usage is going to be next to nothing. Other guys he plays next to can rebound. I guess, like, what do you think the minutes go to? I know I don't like him more than Paul Reed, but if we're talking 90% versus like 7%, I mean, then you can't argue that one bit.
Yeah, so just to be clear, first off, I don't think Paul Reed comes in like the 95% we saw Day'Ron Sharpe, but I do think it's like 80%. Yeah. So that's still so much ownership on a guy like Paul Reed, who's really good at producing, but fragile in terms of the minutes he plays always. So, at that point, while I still think that he's a better play than Paul Reed or than Capella, and Paul Reed will project better, I do think that there's viability to going to Capella in tournaments. Will I do it? No. I'm more likely to play them together, but I think your point about just there being too much value on this slate, like if I land there, sure, kind of just hoping Adams is in, but I don't think Capella is like some super smash play if Adams is out. I think he's a good play on this slate in the context of the slate with all the value, but he kind of just lumps in with all the Denver value, in my opinion. He doesn't stand out in any type of way.
Agree. Last game, 26 minutes, 34 DK points. Obviously, that is very good. 4 from 8 from the field, 8 rebounds, 15% usage, 2 blocks. Yeah, I mean, that's a very solid. Capella, it would depend on the ownership gap. The problem is once you're not playing, I guess it's not that big of a problem because you would play Capella in the util spot and you have the Denver late flexibility. You have 3 games right here with the OKC Charlotte. So if you are in on this game and you have more backloaded roster spots, yeah, you can adjust more. So that's interesting that way. If we get the news released before 7:30, then a lot of people will have time to adjust, and it'd be interesting how many Capella Reed teams there are.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I kind of take back a lot of what I said earlier in the show, kind of slipping my mind that Adams was questionable along with Sengun being out because, like, at that point, yeah, like, I still think Reed projects better, but, like, if there's a big ownership gap, like, I do at that point prefer Capella, like, big as in, like, 80-20 or something like that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think they're that different of plays. And just kind of thinking out loud about this, I talked about how much I like that OKC Charlotte game in tournaments. There aren't centers from that game I want to play. So for me personally, you know, playing both Capella and Reed together and then pivoting off of Capella if Adams is in play for me, because starting center Capella with no real backup is a good play. I mean, again, I don't think he like stands out way above the Denver value, but looking at each individual player from Denver, I think I do like Capella more if Adams is out. So like just an interesting scenario here.
Very much so. Yeah, late swap, you got to be around your computer for sure for this one. What about other spots in this game? Phoenix looks really tough. I mean, what a game they played yesterday. Devin Booker, ice in his veins. Man. Yeah, that was nice. But, man, the back-to-back, fully healthy, the prices are up. Like, Colin Gillespie was free money the first, like, half of the year. But the price is finally up. Grayson's back. These guys are fully healthy. It's tough for me to really get to any of them. If I did choose, I don't know, maybe Booker. It's a tough matchup for him. But, like, you have the money to spend. I really don't love anyone on that side, though. I think the Houston side, and if you look at point per dollar, it reflects it, is the more interesting click. I look at these guys a lot as the same as the Toronto stuff, but they're missing Sengun, so there is a lot more usage to go around that way. So is it Durant? Is it Amen Thompson? Is it Eason? Jabari? Are you making rules? How many can you get to? I think this is at ownership a spot I'm interested in. I don't want to pick wrong. I don't know which one it'll be, but I feel good about at least one of these guys at ownership having a flame or two next to their name.
I think that's very apropos comparing them to Toronto here. I think they look very similar to Toronto, even with Sengun out, because there's still a bunch of these guys. Like, I like Durant at 8,900, but is he a priority on this slate? No. Same with Amen Thompson. Then you go to like the next price points with like Reed Shepherd and Tari Eason. I think both those guys are viable like in tournaments, but again, I don't think that this is a spot or a game where I want to go too deep on. I do think this is a really good game from like an actual watching NBA perspective. This is the best game of the night. You got the Durant Brooks revenge angle. Both these teams are good. Phoenix surprisingly good. Both these teams play good defense. So it's just not overly appealing from a DFS perspective.
Agree with all that. Great real life game, but a lot of the times the best real life games by no means are the best fantasy games. You want some of the worst ones where the teams don't care at all and it's just back and forth track meet, like a lot of the Hawks games. So yeah, that's a good point there. I will get some of the Houston stuff, kind of let SaberSim take the wheel on that, but Durant, Jabari, Eason, Amen Thompson, and possibly Capella, I think would all be solid plays for their price, and the ownership won't really, like, you use that in chalk your stuff to get different. I think I prefer this stuff more than like the Hawks stuff, more than that Bulls Boston game. You like the Charlotte OKC game, but if that game blows out, like you only have so many games to go to. I think this would be the one on the Houston side. Phoenix is a little tougher to get to, but yeah, great.
That's a good point you make. Also, part of the reason that the OKC Charlotte game, like, I'm willing to go harder on that than I normally would be is to the point you just made and you made earlier on. A bunch of the games tonight have really big spreads. So like kind of no matter what you do, unless you play this game, obviously, or Toronto, Atlanta, which is another reason it's getting a lot of love. Like you're picking into games that have big spreads, but like, certainly you don't like that, but in NBA, especially like with those, I don't know, how many games did you say were like 10 plus spreads? 3?
Yeah, I think it's 3 and then one's 8.5. So like,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I bet at least one of those dogs wins outright.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's the NBA for you for sure. So interesting game. I like the Houston stuff, not the Phoenix stuff. Let's go to the game that everyone needs to worry about. It's the last game of the slate, at least 8:30 Eastern. It is on an island though, in terms of like starting lineups. Maybe you'll get it right at 8 Eastern. All these games will lock. You're going to have a lot of open roster spots, so you more than likely will. The Nuggets and the 76ers, big total or big favorites though. 14.5-point favorites are the 76ers. 228.5 total. Assuming you didn't wake up under a rock yesterday, you know that Jokic is out, Valanciunas is out, and then today, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Christian Braun, and Tim Hardaway are all out. That leaves them with a bunch of random guys, and I shouldn't say random, like Bruce Brown, Pickett, Strawther, Najee. We've seen these guys, Peyton Watson. We've seen these guys for a little while, but yeah, just look at these prices. And again, the ownership is not updated, but you're going to see massive value on these guys. And a lot of it, point guard, shooting guard, point guard, shooting guard, small forward. We do have small forward, power forward, Zeke at center, Brown, Pickett, Strawther, Watson, all going to be popular. Yeah, I guess just take it away from there. Is any hot takes, any rankings, any separation in rules? And then after you talk Denver stuff, we'll go to the Philly side. Implied for a lot of points at 121.
It's tough, man, because I don't even know if Denver's coach knows the rules right now with this lineup that they're running out there tonight. You know what I mean? So, like, I know you meant and clarified, no disrespect, but it is a bunch of randoms thrown out there when you got Jokic, J-Val, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, Jamal Murray all out. Like, they're missing, like, all their whole starting lineup plus a couple bench guys. So you're getting, like, the back end of Denver's rotation here for a full game. We've seen this play out many different ways. Seen it play out where, like, Philly just doesn't take these guys seriously, and then all of a sudden, like, all the Denver guys get there because, like, they're playing inspired ball, they're in the game, etc. We've seen it where, like, teams in this spot cannot do anything. I remember a spot last year with Dallas when, like, everyone was out and it was all these value guys. They literally scored like 25 points in the first half and finished the game with like 60. No one got there, even at cheap price points. I don't think it was as cheap a price points as this, though. Because of that, it's almost impossible to get away from Denver here because they got so many guys at like the flat 3K to 4K range, which just is like gold in NBA DFS. So my big problem with all these guys is like none of them individually are really good fantasy producers. The guy I feel most comfortable with is Bruce Brown at 4,300. I think he runs the show. Ownership is fine, not low, but not crazy high either. Point guard, shooting guard eligible. Don't love that, but fine with it. Jalen Pickett, I think, looks good here. Same position eligibility as Brown, a little bit cheaper. Strawther and Hunter Tyson, both 3K. Strawther projecting as like one of the highest owned players on the slate outside of Paul Reed. That doesn't feel good. Like, he is not a good fantasy producer. That being said, most of his run, like, he doesn't get run with like Curtis Jones and Hunter Tyson. So maybe when he's running with those guys, his usage increases. There's just so much unknown here. If you're playing 150, you just want exposure to all these guys scattered throughout. Let Sabersim do its thing. Not to say there aren't any rules. I don't know what they are because I just don't know if Denver knows what they are.
For sure. This is tough. The appeal, obviously, I'm seeing 9 guys will be suited up for Denver. And when you have 9 guys, I mean, you're a lot of these guys are blowout proof. Like, if it does blow out, who's not playing? Bruce Brown,
Peyton Watson.
And then from there, like they're probably going to be rotating. And even if it does blow out, they're still getting a solid amount, like allotment of minutes. Do you think they're going to split the center position 48 minutes between Holmes and Zeke Naji? Let's see. We got 25 or Sabres 25 minutes there, 27. Yeah.
I think
it's just one of them. They won't share the court once, but they're just going to split it.
I mean, yes, but I also don't think it's crazy if they play like 5 minutes together just because of how this team is suited up tonight. Like, because of the bodies they have. Like, Day'Ron Holmes can play the 4.
That make me really excited about Zeke Naji, and just in the sense of maybe these 25 minutes are under projected a little bit if they would share the courts. Man, just like him and Holmes. Like, I'm just trying to find center pivots. And again, if if Adams is out and Capella,
hard, man.
Yeah, like then I don't think there's really any need to go to this as much. But like you're getting like all the value, all the ownership's going to all the other Denver pieces except the centers on this slate. So I'm just trying to find any way to possibly get different there. If they did share the court, I think this number would be like maybe 28, 29. It'd be interesting if I did play it. I'm probably just playing it with Paul Reed though, and then jamming studs. Do you have any leans on these guys though? Strother, Pickett, Brown, any of them you wouldn't play? Anything?
No, like no one I wouldn't play. I am like the Strother ownership is crazy for a guy that like just isn't a good fantasy producer, but he's 3K. So you're not going to say like don't play him. I think Hunter Tyson at the same exact price point is an interesting pivot, or playing them together certainly. Curtis Jones is mildly intriguing to me because he's also the flat 3K and not getting like any ownership compared to all the other Denver guys. So he kind of falls into like the Zeke Naji, Day'Ron Holmes boat of like just not getting any ownership where everyone else is getting a ton of ownership. So yeah, I like your point about Zeke Naji. This is one like we talked about earlier where like if I didn't know ball, if I didn't know anything about NBA and was just going off projections and stuff, I might be a little more interested in Zeke Naji than I am, but he is so ass. Like, it's hard to play him over a guy like Paul Reed or Capella. Now, to your other point, though, like, Day'Ron Holmes started against the Cavs the other night, immediate 2 fouls. With Embiid, like, why couldn't that happen? And then all of a sudden, the Zeke Naji is playing 28 minutes just because of that. So, like, they don't even have to play together for, like, the Naji thing to work out as far as minutes go. My big problem with him is, like, even if he plays 30 minutes, is he going to get there?
That's a good point. In terms of people always ask, like, how many Denver's too many? You can definitely play 4. I think 5, you're getting to the point that maybe that's too many just for the simple fact of their price tags. Like, you got to spend your money at the end of the day.
Yeah, the goal isn't to just build the most like value lineup. Like you want to score the most points. To your point, exactly.
Yeah, so I'd probably say 4 max, which is in play when you do go 4. If you're not playing like Naji, Jones, like if you're just eating all Strother, Pickett, Bruce Brown, Watson, probably get different somewhere else. Maybe don't play Paul Reed or something. Find a contrarian spend, but yeah, 4 is definitely fine. Let's go to the Philly side. I do think we talked about it at pre-show. Like if you're not playing Paul Reed or at the beginning of the show, I think Joel Embiid's probably my favorite way to do it. Just flip the build at center. Hope he scores like 60 plus. Again, there's plenty of value on the slates. It's not like you can't afford him, and hope Paul Reed just has a mild game. After that, I'll let you talk about these other guys. I mean, they're healthy. Maxi's a beast. Edgecombe can be a beast, but I feel like there's a lot of snowflake potential as well as big favorites at pretty steep prices.
Yeah, like my problem is I think there's a lot of snowflake potential, but also I think they're just priced where they should be. So the Embiid call makes a lot of sense from like a game theory standpoint as far as flipping the build. But I don't think he's some like amazing value play. I think he's probably a little bit too cheap still, but like fairly priced right now at 8,700 with them being fully healthy. And I think that about the rest of Philly. And with how Denver is constructed here and the price tags on Philly and on Denver, I don't think you need any Philly if you're playing a ton of Denver. Now, do I think that if Denver keeps this game competitive, someone or a couple guys from Philly could get there? Sure. But, you know, I don't know how likely that is in the first place. And even if that's the case, like I do think that there are, better point per dollar plays elsewhere on the board. So Philly for me is just a team I probably won't get much of, except for maybe Embiid. I like that shout out.
Yeah, no, I do think Embiid, Paul Reed lineups will be decently popular. I think those are really the two appealing centers people will play. They will play them together. If you're not playing Paul Reed, though, most of my
we don't get the Adams news. Capella's going to be low owned.
Yeah, for sure. Now the thing is, if we do get it, it could possibly, like if we get it 45 minutes prior, only one game is locked. Now that is Paul Reed slot for many. Could be Towns, but a lot of people would have a util spot, and then that would lower Embiid's ownership because you could only play one of Capella and Embiid. You'd be flexed that way. So that is an interesting note.
Great point.
Yep,
it's a great point. It just makes it, like, to your point, like multiplied about how Embiid's flipping the build, because all of a sudden a lot of those Embiid Reed lineups are going to flip to Paul Reed to Capella lineups and spending up elsewhere. So it's a great shout out. I think kind of after talking this out with you, those are the three centers I want here: Capella, Reed, and Embiid, and only Capella if Adams is out.
Yep, and I do think most probably feel the same way on this slate. And Paul Reed locks right away on the island, so he'll naturally get a bunch of ownership. Favorite point guard in DK? We don't usually do this. Like if I had to pick, it would be Jalen Pickett, 3.8K in Denver. But we have core reports up that Matt does, that Rio does, that Ham does, NBA. Core report, you could check that out. We also have projections. You can sort point per dollar. You can check out in the Discord. Newens drops his nukes, the best matchups he has. He goes down by positions and stuff. So a lot of different pieces of content out there to construct. We have the Stone, one of the best tools in DFS. So let me pull this up quick. If you're not a member, we appreciate everyone hanging out. Over 400 watching. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. Enjoyed doing my first show with you, Matt. But if you want to join us, no better time, shipnation.com. You just click join the nation right here. And then you can see we do have a daily pass that came out. Very excited for that, for like MMA, NASCAR, when you just want to join individual sport but not sign up for everything. I do think, though, for the best deal, NBA right now, 5 days for $19. You do get NBA every single day. There's some pretty nice slates. Prizes are up now with NFL not in the streets as much. And then we do get Saturday, Sunday, and Monday football. So, yeah, we'd love to have you. You do get access to the Discord and SaberSim with the 5-day deal as well. That'll do. I know different price points, but what do you think of Beef Stew? We didn't love him as much. If there's anything you want to say on Beef Stew, otherwise, just any final thoughts for the people. It was fun talking some hoops with you.
No, yeah, Stewart is like I guess, interesting tournament play because he's not going to get owned, but he's pricier. Like he's priced where he should be at 5,500, as opposed to Paul Reed, who's just the ultimate value. I do think that that makes sense in tournaments, like playing Stewart over Paul Reed. The price isn't really an issue because of how the slate is constructed with all the Denver value. So I get it in tournaments. Probably not what I do, but we should have mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, I guess the reason it's tough if you look at it is just he's 1,700 more and projects less.
Right.
Which it's not less by much. If there was a slate to do it is where you just have all the value in the world, where just say if Paul Reed scores 6 less than his projection, it is a decent chance Paul Reed scores more than his because they do eat into each other a little directly. So yeah, I guess game theory wise, it may be a little more thought, but being 1,700.
Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Being 1,700 more and projected less is always a little more difficult, but this is a slate that it's easier to do so.
Yeah, no, and it also goes back to know what contest you're playing, because if you're playing a higher expensive, lower dollar buy-in, maybe you're willing to eat a little bit of projection loss because of the ownership gain you're going to get, because Paul Reed's going to be that much higher owned, where again, I like how you put it earlier, you're just simply playing a different game.
Absolutely. Yeah, Matt's on his shift for sure. I enjoyed talking some hoops with you, Marcus. I assume that's awesome. Great day in Florida. Enjoy the nice sunshine, the nice weather. I am definitely doing that as well. Final thoughts, Matt, before we get on out here?
Nah, man, just great doing first show and excited for next Monday.
Absolutely. Me as well. Tomorrow you will get me and Rio. There the man is himself talking some hoops, but Do not forget, 7 p.m. Eastern lock time. There is 2 more games on FanDuel if you are playing, though, at 10 Eastern. All content will be up, as always. Be safe. Stay blessed out there. We will be back tomorrow. Appreciate all the support. Thumbs up on the way out. Helps us out a ton. For Matt, I'm Titletown. Good luck. Be safe. Peace.